There we go. So once again, thank you and good afternoon. And I'm really happy to be doing this class for all of you on meditation instruction. And one of the things I wanted to ask about at the beginning was, I know that it's been a whole week since we got together and talked about the initial materials, but I wondered, as I'm setting up for the next materials for us to look at, I wondered if anybody had any questions from last time. You can just unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Okay. I did watch the YouTube, so I did have a question, Lama Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
The example about Kempo Carter answering a question about reincarnation.
Oh, sure.
I did kind of ponder if that might come up a lot. That's one of the first things people often know about Buddhism, that they're, and I just, so I know one time I asked you about it and you said something about, well, you know, in Buddhism, it's sort of like a buffet or a smorgasbord or Borg, and you could, you know, there's a lot you could put on your plate, but you don't have to put it all on your plate. Is there a way to, I know Kipper Carther's Rinpoche's, or his answer made more sense where he's more experienced, but how would one that's less experienced answer a question like that, which I believe comes up a lot around beginners with Buddhism?
Right. Yeah. I think, hang on here just a second. I think that one of the easiest, one of the easier ways to answer a question that you don't know the answer to is to say directly, well, you know, I myself have not studied this in depth, so I won't be able to give you an answer on that, but I will ask my teacher and then I'll get back to you next week. That's one of the ways that Rinpoche suggested that we handle questions that we can't answer. Okay, that's one. And I like the smorgasbord analogy. My favorite statement of that type came actually from Kempo Rinpoche himself, who didn't know that he was quoting 12-step literature when he said, look, you don't have to believe everything in order to benefit from Buddhist teaching. And I think that that's a really good way of saying it. You don't have to subscribe to or believe everything you hear in Buddhism in order to benefit from Buddhist meditation. So that's the second thing I'd say. And then the final thing that I would say, I'm sorry. And then as part of that second point, he said, take what you need and leave the rest behind, which is very interesting because that's one of the comments that's one of the teachings of the 12-step tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. Take what you need and leave the rest behind. So if a person doesn't believe in reincarnation, that's fine. They don't have to believe, and we won't require them to believe. What we will require them to do is, if they practice meditation, they're going to need to let go of their thoughts and return to the technique of watching the breath. You know, so did that address your question, or is there a part of your question that I missed?
No, it really did. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
I am glad you asked about that. So thanks.
Lama Kathy?
Yeah.
This is Patricia. Would it be okay to add into that something like, as you study Buddhism, you may, you know, the Buddha said, basically take what you need and leave the rest behind. Or actually, the Buddha said, what do I want to say here? The Buddha said, investigate for yourself.
Right.
And decide.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, a basic tenet. Is that okay to say?
It is okay to say that. It is okay to say that. And the way that I like to quote the Buddha is he says, don't believe something just because I'm saying it. So that you should investigate it for yourself. And I think that that's a really good point. So I'm good with that. I'm good with that kind of idea, because in the end, it's all about the person and their relationship to their mind. You know, what is their person's relationship to their mind like? And when we teach meditation, we're giving them a tool or a technique for getting to know their own mind. And yeah, you're right. There are lots of people who have lots of beliefs. Some don't believe in reincarnation. Some don't really believe in karma, and these kinds of things. And rather than say, well, you know, if you don't believe those things, I can't help you. I think that's not for us to say. I think so. I do agree with being able to say the Buddha himself said, don't believe something just because I said it. Find out and investigate for yourself. So yeah, I'm cool with that. Yeah.
Thank
Not
you.
to get not to get too caught up in going on about just this topic, but I think
Oh, I'm okay with that, because this is your time. This is your
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Also, though, some people might want to hear what is the perspective on reincarnation. I think reincarnation and karma are both probably two very popular ideas.
Yeah.
And it would be handy to be able to say, I could say, you
Good
don't
point.
have to subscribe to this. However, this is what this lineage would teach on that matter. Or
Well, yeah. And I can do that. I can give you something short that you can say. And this actually comes from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So it's not lineage specific. It's not lineage specific, but it's Tibetan Buddhism specific. And that is that the Dalai Lama, when he was asked about rebirth or reincarnation or whatever, he said that the philosophical view of Buddhism, so that's how it starts, sort of the philosophical view of Buddhism, is that one moment of consciousness, okay, lays the basis for the next moment of consciousness. Okay, so one moment of consciousness lays the basis for the next moment of consciousness. And so that, he said, goes infinitely in both directions. Okay, so this has been going on, this one moment of our human consciousness, one moment of consciousness laying the basis for the next moment. And I use this analogy, you know, the idea of a chain. One moment of consciousness lays the basis for the next moment, and that actually goes infinitely in both directions. So that means the Buddha's teaching is that our mind was never created in the past. And because it was never created in the past, it cannot be destroyed or go out of existence. So this is what the Dalai Lama's statement implies. One moment of consciousness, the Buddhist philosophical teaching is that one moment of consciousness lays the basis for the next moment, and it goes infinitely in both directions. So if that's the case, and we've only been alive in this life for X number of years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on, this means that for not just for this 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but infinitely in both directions, this has been happening for us. So that our mind, the Buddha also taught, that's the first statement. One moment of consciousness lays the basis for the next, and that goes infinitely in both directions. The Buddha taught that our minds have always existed from the no beginning of time and always will exist till the no ending of time. No beginning of time, no ending of time. And that then implies that we go through a series of lifetimes, during each of which we have specific experiences that are based on our karmic accumulation. And so so that would be, I guess, the main thing to say about reincarnation. a basic thing that you can say about karma is the Buddha, from the Buddhist philosophical viewpoint, okay? From the Buddhist philosophical viewpoint. And you can point to the opening verses in the Dhammapada, you know, which many people will have been at least passing familiarity. And you can call the Dhammapada a book of the Buddha's sayings, because that's essentially what it is. It's a capsulization of some of the Buddha's sayings. In the Dhammapada, the first thing he talks about is how our mind creates our experience. He says, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts, we make the world. And so that is his basic teaching on karma. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts, we make the world, okay? And so then so basically he's saying, and then in the next verse, he actually goes on about this. In the next verse of the Dhammapada, he says, if you think or speak or act with an impure mind, meaning a confused mind, a deluded mind, a selfish mind, suffering will follow you, just as certainly will the wheel follow the ox that draws the cart. So the idea is that it's a certainty that suffering will follow if you think or speak or act with this impure, confused mind of delusion and selfishness. And then he says how, on the other hand, if you think, speak, and act with a pure mind of wisdom and selflessness, then happiness will follow you like a shadow, unshakable. So the idea is he's giving physical examples. The wheel follows the ox, and the shadow follows the person. These idea of things that are inevitabilities. And if people want to know what the mechanism for this is, then they're going to need another explanation from
We'll tell them to tune into you, Lama Kathy.
Yeah. But you see what I'm saying? You know, it's like, and the two analogies for karma, there are two analogies. One is a seed planted in the ground, and the other is an impression made in clay. And that each of these thoughts, words, and actions create what are called karmic impressions or karmic imprints, which then influence how we experience the world. These karmic imprints influence how we experience the world. So let's say, we'll use an extreme example. Let's say we're a person who listens to talk radio and watches the news and is angry all the time. Okay, right? So naturally, this person who is angry all the time lives in a world that is a zero-sum game. I'm either a winner or I'm a loser. And so if people listen to this type of information and they subscribe to this type of philosophy, the world they live in is circumscribed by their belief system. And then that influences everything that happens to them. So you can see how even in mundane ways, karma actually works. If you're angry all the time, then even if someone is pleasant to you and says, good morning, you'll say, what's so good about it? Because that's what you've been strengthening. That's what you've been holding. You've been holding a mind of anger, and that's what you've been exercising. So that's what you have. So I don't know, Catherine, does that help at all? Yeah.
Very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad, because those are two common things, and I can spend a little time in subsequent classes talking about these FAQs, frequently asked questions. And someday, I just don't have the time right this minute, but help me remember, and I will get with Lama Adam and Lama Tom, and we'll try to create an FAQ for meditation instructors that will give some of these examples. And so, I think that's a good thing. By the way, you can also give a positive example, such as virtually everyone in their life knows a sainted individual from their past. For me, it was my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother never raised her voice to anyone, was always pleasant, was always kind and loving, and was very religious and read her Bible every day and believed in it. So I look at my sainted great-grandmother and think, now there's a person who accumulated a lot of good and positive thoughts, words, actions, right? So there's a person who created for herself a world that was kind of getting closer and closer to heaven by the day. So you don't only have to give negative examples. You can also give positive examples. I really appreciate you asking this. And I know it wasn't part of our topic today, but I do think it's important that we talk about these. I do, because here's the deal. People come to us, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said it, and I mentioned this last time. He says, people don't come to the Dharma Center because they're having a good time. They come to the Dharma Center because they're hurting. And some part of their life, or they're either hurting or some part of their life isn't working the way they'd like for it to work, and they want to improve it. So they're either hurting or they want to make an improvement. And so he said they come for this. And so our job is to listen as much as we can. And then he said, reflect. Very simple advice. And so that's why when I train the meditation instructors in Columbus, I like to tell them that even if people ask confrontational questions, or like questions in a confrontational manner, like, well, I don't believe in any of this stuff about karma. That's just a bunch of hooey. People will do that sometimes because they're frightened. And as you know, hurt people hurt people. That's just how it is. People who are feeling hurt do tend, unless they're working on their hurt, unless they're finding support for healing their hurt people hurt people. And so if you have somebody who comes to you who's confrontational, I can tell you from my own experience, there's several different possibilities of things they're afraid of. One of the things they're afraid of is that the direction they're taking in life is not right. And that's one thing that they could be afraid of. And so then they'll resist whatever we are telling them because they don't want to think that what they've been doing is wrong or has not been bearing fruit for them. Or it could be that they're afraid that they will look stupid if they believe in something or follow something that doesn't turn out to be true. I've had several people tell me that they fear choosing to follow Buddhism because they're afraid that it's going to be just as full of hooey as the religion of their childhood, and they're going to feel betrayed and duped you know, they fear that they're being manipulated, betrayed, and duped. And so we have to just basically say, you know, we got no horse in this race. We love it if you're here. We love it if you're there. It's fine. You know, that we have to be that sort of open presence for them. And as Ted Lasso says, be more curious than judgmental, which of course he was quoting Walt Whitman, but which was very nice. He attributed his source, but anyway, so other stuff maybe to talk about. Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I appreciate what you've been telling them. I get a lot out of everything you do. I had a incident on the Facebook page for a Buddhist group, this Vajrayana parentheses Tibetan close parentheses Buddhism.
Sure.
But this fella that used to be a personal physician for Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche had put up a post. Yeah, Dr. Meyer, Fred Meyer. He put up a post that what was it? Excuse me. My brain was enlightened. Being enlightened is the same thing as being fully human. And so I agreed with him. And I mentioned when I was studying, just, you know, for 4 months I spent with Trungpa back in '79 that I remember he had said that Buddhism is the best way to be a human being. So somebody got on there, and you know, he had replied first to the other guy that is that something from a recognized Lama? I've never heard that. And
the becoming fully human quotation.
Yeah.
So you know what, Stephen, I don't know. I've actually, but I'm like you. I'm curious because I've heard the same statement made by several different teachers, including Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche has made this statement. And I think that it goes back to the idea that enlightenment is considered the full realization of all human potential. Right. You know, and so if we look at enlightenment as being the full realization of all human potential for wisdom, for goodness, for compassion, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I used to say that enlightenment was all compassion and all wisdom, you know, having perfected wisdom and compassion, having perfect, you know, so, and which really is essentially saying the same thing. And I think that regardless of which Buddhist teacher originated the statement, which I don't know who it was, I do feel that it has both pros and cons. Pro is that it makes dharma accessible to people who are very pragmatic, who don't like all this kind of mystical, high intellectual logic, you know, people who are not really into all that, and they're more pragmatic. Like, what does it mean to be a decent human being? And so those people will feel comforted by that statement. The con is that they will think, well, all I have to do is be a decent human being and I'm enlightened, you know, which is kind of the downside of that. You know what I'm saying? By the way, I just remembered as I was saying that being a decent human being, that came from His Holiness 17th Karmapa and from Situ Rinpoche. They said that. So it's like, you know, you have like this great integrity and decency about you.
Yeah. Well, I'm confident about you know, I quoted a few things, but basically my question was about this fella that questioned what was going on. He had said, well, you know, that's nonsense. First of all, he said it's not what Ana Atma people teach. I don't know what Ana Atma is. It sounds kind of like Hinayana. But anyway, I quoted from him for what we had last week about Khenpo Karthus talking about the Vajrayana, and I take it as part of the validation of what you've been saying and what we were both saying before, was that Vajrayana says everybody is a wisdom deity already. We just don't realize it because ego is in the way there, and we just need to get rid of ego and be aware of what's there. So, and I put up a post later after he said, "Well, that's all nonsense. I'm not going to read this." And disappeared. You know, I had said, "Well, I'm just trying to be helpful. Don't get me wrong here," but. You know, I found an Enigma Rinpoche that had a post on Facebook that I shared that said basically the same thing. And anyway, so I just wanted to know, but you mentioned something about sutra last time and said that was what the Buddha had taught was his words. But this guy had said in arguing with me or disputing what I was saying, he'd said that the Buddha didn't teach that himself, you know. And I said, well, are you saying that you were present, you know, when Buddha was everything, you heard everything that he taught to anybody? But I don't know, is it, you think it's taken that all of what the Buddhists taught was in the sutras, or, you know, that sort of thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not know the answer to that. Because the way I have heard it is that the Buddha taught the sutras and the Buddha taught the tantras. It's just that he taught the tantras in a different location in a different form. He took the form of Gui Samaja or Chakra Samvara or Kala Chakra, and then he taught these things. That's what I've been told, but I don't have it written in any specific thing. You might benefit from reading Reginald Ray's book on Vajrayana, which is called Secrets. He wrote two books. One was The Indestructible Truth. That's the first one. And I think that would be the best one to read. There's also a book called Vajrayana that was written by Traleg Rinpoche, and that's Traleg. Traleg Rinpoche. He wrote a book on Vajrayana, and I think that reading that or reading Reginald Ray's book, Indestructible Truth, would be a good introduction. Now, Reginald Ray has gone on to become a guru himself, and so I'm a little disappointed. He claims that Trungpa Rinpoche authorized him, and I'm guessing okay, but you know, so I don't know what to think about that. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I don't like that. I mean, honestly, don't know. So I worry, you know. I mean, Kempa Rinpoche told me continuously that I'm not a guru, so I need to kind of like, you know, hold on to that part. But his explanations are just excellent. Reginald Ray's.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I just ordered.
I wouldn't, you know, Stephen. You know, I got to tell you, there's this incredible energy that suffuses chat rooms online.
Yeah.
And it's not all good. I think that online chat rooms actually sometimes encourage people to argue from a position of anonymity. Like, I'm anonymous, you don't know me, so I can punch you with verbs and, you know, and words and get away with it. Because a lot of the arguments, I mean, a lot of the discussions on social media devolve, and it becomes a power struggle because there's no love in the situation. And I had a therapist tell me once, you know, when the love has gone out of a relationship, all that's left is to argue over who has the power and how they use it.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself some questions before you respond to something, and try to be a positive force.
Well, yeah, I do. It's a challenge, but yeah, I remember that book by Pema about welcoming the unwelcome, you know, and what Khenpo Kartra said about you know, try to be helpful. You know, don't feel superior to somebody, but
Yes, exactly. That's
the kind of things. It's difficult to keep in mind, but yeah, I get a lot of positive things, but then people sometimes want to argue about stuff.
Well, and I hear that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Anybody else before we move to the next topic? Okie dokie. I want to thank you for these questions and comments and so on, because they're really they're very helpful, and they're helping us to get better at what we're doing and how we're doing it. So today I want to begin by just briefly reviewing what we talked about the last time. Oops. I think I got this right. Let's see if I've got the right one up. Yes, I do. Okay, these are the things we spoke about the last time. The proper attitude of one who teaches the Dharma, the vast or infinite attitude that wants to benefit others. Teach only what you're sure you know. Eliminate feelings of superiority. Teach to the capacity of the students, and being honest and open. And then the essentials for people who are instructors are a sincere, committed, and progressive daily meditation practice. And I really love this description. It was created by Daryl Peters, who was one of the first senior. He was my first senior meditation instructor at KTC. And he was he had a master's degree in journalism, and so he was really good at making lists and describing things, and so I'm really indebted to him for creating this list. So sincere, committed, and progressive. This means that we ourselves have to look at ourselves and to ask of ourselves that we do what we are asking of the students. If we're asking our students to try meditation on first eyes and to do meditation on a regular basis, then it's good for us to do the same thing. Now, you don't have to have a lengthy meditation practice. I know people who have to get by because of their home, family, and work responsibilities. They can only do 5 or 10 minutes of practice, but they do it every day. They do it with commitment every day. And they don't have time to do a big practice of setting up their shrine every day, but they at least can recite their refuge prayers in the morning and the evening. So even if this is all that's possible for you with your responsibilities in life, I think it's really great. And progressive, in my mind, really means that you continuously deepen your appreciation for and your practice of Dharma and meditation. So this is, I think these are essential. The second one is mastery of the material being presented. Well, we're not going to, I don't feel that we're going to be instantly masters of this, and that frequently we will need to refamiliarize ourselves with the material and ask questions of our meditation instructor supervisor, because we will have someone supervising us, and that person we can go to and for things that we don't understand, or like we did today, come up with specific ways of stating things that are consistent and simple about reincarnation, karma, and other frequently asked questions. But what we do at Columbus is we have a meditation instructor meeting every quarter. So that's 4 quarters of the year. Excuse me. And we meet for 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on the schedule and so on. And one of the first things we do is we say, how's it going? You know, how have your classes been going? What kinds of things have the students been asking? How have you been feeling about the material? How are you feeling about your work with the material? And people are quite honest about where they feel they are doing well and where they feel they need some help. And then so we spend the first part, maybe 45 minutes of our meeting, just getting a readout from everybody. You know, everybody's checking in about how it's going. And that gives us an opportunity to deepen their understanding of the material. Ongoing study, it means that we work with a teacher, ideally. That we have a teacher, that meditation instructors have a teacher, and they work with a teacher, and they study Dharma under the teacher's direction. Frequently, teachers will offer lists of books that students can read and say, read these books in this order, or they will be working with people through various practices like Nundro practice, which is the Mahamudra preliminary, and so on. So yeah, it's good for a student, a meditation instructor, to have ongoing study. Faith in the Dharma, meaning that they themselves have confidence. And there are three kinds of confidence, or three kinds of faith. The first of these is called admiring faith. And admiring faith means you see somebody like the Dalai Lama and you say, wow, I want to have what he has. I want to be like him. So that's admiring faith, where you look at an individual who embodies what you want to accomplish and you go, hey, I'd like to have that too. It's a very simple faith, but it's genuine. The second kind of faith is called aspiring faith. So the first is admiring faith. The second is aspiring faith, meaning where you're not just admiring somebody and say, I'd like to do that someday. You're saying, I'd like to try that. I want to do that myself. And so that's aspiring faith. And that usually happens after you've started taking some lessons and practicing some meditation for yourself. It's like, yeah, I really want to do that. I aspire to become like that. And the third kind of faith is called the faith of certainty, or confidence, or confident faith, or certain faith. And that comes from actually experiencing some qualities in your life from having practiced, where now you don't need to wonder, can I be like that? You can say, I can actually see myself slowly, maybe over a long period of time, but gradually becoming like that. I can see myself becoming like that. So when we talk about faith in the Dharma, it's one of these three kinds of faith. And we hope that at least one of them is at work in our life. And then finally, the other essential is compassion for and respect for each Dharma student. Yeah, even the difficult ones. Even the ones that get on your last raw nerve because they ask a lot of questions. At least you have some compassion for them and respect the fact that they're not where they want to be. Does anybody have questions? Would you like to have a little discussion on this? These essentials. Do you have any comments, questions, thoughts? And I can't see all of your pictures right now because I'm doing a screen share. So if you have a question, you can unmute and ask.
Lama Kathy, this is Patricia.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing this handout. Did you send it through the?
Don't know.
Okay.
Don't know.
Can we get our hands on it?
I thought this was one of the earlier ones. My bad.
No, not
Yeah.
your bad. I might have missed it. So
Yeah, I'll make sure it goes out today. Okay.
thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Other questions?
Well, I think one thing I would just say is it's easy for me to feel a little sense of unconfidence about this, only in,
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
because while I do feel like I could say honestly that all five of those things are things that I experience,
Mhm.
I also might have a week that I don't do a very good job at these things, or a moment where I have some real doubt, or of
Right.
course, and I mean, I know that's to be expected, but like, at what point does a person like me say, I am at a place where it would be appropriate for me to share this in this way?
Right. No, I understand that. I'm going to type a few things into chat and see if see if these things are helpful. I really appreciate your honesty about this, because I do feel that honesty is important. I mean, we have to know who we are and where we are in time, right? And so I was discussing this last night with a Dharma student. Our Dharma is going to be up and down. We're Ponlop Rinpoche said this one time. He said, we like to think that our Dharma is going to be like one, or our meditation is going to be like one continuous upward movement, where he says, it's not like that. It's actually more like the stock market. One day it's up, the next day it's down. It might be up for the next 2 days and then be down for 4 days. And then, so he said, it's actually more like the stock market, and that it's up and down. And the reason for this, according to Trungpa Rinpoche's teachings, the reason it's like this is because our karma is continuously coming to fruition, and we are reacting and interacting with the fruition of our karma. Good karma and bad karma is coming to fruition, like one after another, after another, after another. And we will then be sort of buffeted about by the winds of karma, if you want to put it like that. So because everything is going to be up and down, he said it's important for us to understand that the general trend is up. The general trend is up, but on a day-to-day basis, it might be up and down. And I think what we need to, and so hearing what he had to say about this, here's what I would say is, because things are up and down, what we have to do is cultivate stability. We have to, because things are up and down, we have to do whatever we can to cultivate an inner stability. And that inner stability can be done by a daily meditation practice. Because when you're working every day at coming back to the breath, like, this crisis is happening in my thoughts, come back to the breath, come back to the breath. You know what I'm saying? Or like, this wonderful thing is happening to me, come back to the breath, come back to the, so the idea is, if we can cultivate some inner stability, then, and cultivate some inner confidence in the Dharma, even if I'm not really, it's like, even if I'm not having a good week, the Dharma is still true. You know what I'm saying? And the other thing you can do is look back and see where you are today, as opposed to where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you definitely will see improvement. And that will help on those weeks when things aren't going quite so well. Because if you look at the all over improvement, the general trend is up, even though you have ups and downs. Does that make sense? And when you have like serious downs where things are just really not working, and you feel you're starting to feel a little desperate, that's a really good time to reach out to support people, your Dharma friends, or to your teachers or whatever. Just reach out and say, I'm really struggling right now. Because that's why I had that email conversation with the person last night. They were really struggling. They had just been through an extremely bad day and had really failed. They felt they failed themselves. But of course, the funny thing is the person also had an unrealistic idea. They said, well, I thought that once you started practicing Mahamudra and the Bodhisattva path, that these kinds of upheavals wouldn't happen to you anymore. And I'm like, oh, you're so adorable. Of course they're going to keep happening, I mean, I love people because they do. They have this incredible, genuine, loving faith in the Dharma. I mean, they really believe in it. And they really believe that it's going to change their life. And then they get this like disappointment when things don't like instantly go up, 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 up. So this person, I have to keep reminding them of the ups and downs and cultivating this inner stability in the midst of the ups and downs. So Daily meditation will help. Cultivating inner confidence in Dharma, looking back and seeing how they have done. And then the other thing that I really, really encourage people to study is Lojong or mind training, because in mind training, they specifically, the mind training books specifically teach us how to deal with the ups and the downs, and how to cultivate inner stability in the midst of ups and downs. So, I mean, technically, what you'll hear the Tibetans say to this is they're going to say, cultivate equanimity. And we're like, I don't like that. Equanimity. I don't have that. So like, you're telling me that bad things aren't bad and good things aren't good. You know, so because we come from such a heavily dualistic background, even though that is the traditional answer you will hear from a Tibetan teacher, I like to talk about stability instead, because I do feel stability brings a person to more equanimity. Does that make sense? This is like the first time I've ever really talked about this out loud. I've thought this for a long time, but you're the first group I've actually shared that with, because a person who's really hurting, it's so hard to say to them, cultivate equanimity. It's just, it doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right to me, because it's like telling them that there's a fault with how they're handling things. Whereas cultivating stability is something that I think that they feel is more in reach. It's more within reach, you know, because they can cultivate this gradually over time. It takes time to cultivate inner stability, but you don't ever give up. And I think and you don't give up on yourself. And that's, I think, the message that I try to give people. Any questions about that? Thank you for asking that question, by the way, Catherine. Did that help? Awesome. Thank you. Again, I can't see everyone's face on the screen share. So if you have a question, just unmute and ask. Okay, then. I'm glad we talked about these things. And thank you, Patricia, for pointing out that I didn't send this before. I have so much stuff, and I won't say it's completely and utterly disorganized, but it's mainly disorganized. So it's not utterly disorganized, it's just mainly disorganized. And I'm finding, like, even today, I found stuff I had not seen in years. It's just hanging out on my disk drive. It's like, oh, okay, cool. There's that. Which reminds me, I have to back this puppy up tonight. Yes.
About the handouts. I think, I know I love them. I think we all do. And I was thinking for everyone, it'll be nice to print them all out and maybe get 3-ring binders or something. I mean, I think I could see this really turning into some nice notebooks for ourselves and our Dharma Center. For the instructors. It's phenomenal. The handouts. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is a really good idea. What we did in Columbus was we put them on a Google Drive, and that people could download them as they wished, because I used to actually give binders to new meditation instructors, and they're like, no, I want it online. So I mean, so everybody's different. But I do agree that what we can do is at some point in the future, when we finish this go round, maybe one of the things we can do is try to organize some kind of Google Drive with everything on it and give all of you permission and that kind of stuff that you can download and see this. So yay.
Yeah. Okay,
good deal. So let's see, what have I got here? Oh yeah, let's see. Okay, yeah, okay. So there's a lot more here. I'll give you a little bit more. I see we're almost at the top of the hour, because I'm going to give you like a 7-minute break. Should we do it now? Let's just do it now, since I've kind of stopped. I'm going to turn off my microphone and video for 7 minutes, and I will see you at about a little bit, but a little after 5, let's see, a little around 5 past the hour, something like that. Okay, so thanks, and I'll see you again in a minute. Okay, thanks for coming back. If it's okay, I'm going to go ahead back to the screen share and review these guidelines that we were talking about. The next section, after covering the proper attitude and essentials, is it's about connection and how to connect with people who you're teaching to. Because I mean, it's not just giving information, it's actually connecting to people and being present for them. If you remember, one of the things I talked about last time we met was Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's advice to people who are talking to newcomers to basically just listen and reflect. And I think that this is excellent advice, because that does allow us to connect. And those of us who have learned about and are trying to practice the Bodhisattva commitment to be of benefit to sentient beings, we sort of have a little bit of practice at this already, but we can always use more. I know, for one thing, when I wake up in the morning, I like to do my practice first thing so I don't forget it. And one of the things I try to say at the end of my morning practice is, may everything I do today benefit beings in some way. In other words, may even my mistakes be of benefit to other people, and so on. And may we all come to Buddhahood. So that's kind of that's something I like to do. And this is a way of practicing the Bodhisattva vow and commitment to benefit beings. So being present, it's very difficult these days because we have so many distractions. You know, we have cell phones and computers and so forth. And so being present is kind of at a premium these days. And so actually being present for someone means that you do your best to pay attention and not be absent while you're listening. We've all experienced that. I had a coworker, and he was this kind of person where even when you were talking to him at lunch, you could sense that he was disengaged and he was miles away, you know. And so having lunch with him and the other coworkers, you could really tell the difference, because he was not able to be present, and so it felt strange. So we have to try our best to be present. Greet students with warmth, openness, and authenticity. In other words, be curious. In other words, just be curious about them and what they have to tell you. It's not about you, it's about them. And to be present with them, rather than saying, here's me, here's who I am. It's basically you're asking them, who are you? Listening is what we talked about last time, just being open to what they have to say, which is going to be reflective of how complete and how completely processed we are as individuals, because sometimes we're a little bit unprocessed as individuals, and there may be things that they may bring up that might be tender spots for us. Maybe they're having trouble at home and it's reflecting a problem we have at our home. Or maybe they're feeling doubts and concerns and they're reflecting doubts and concerns that we have. So it won't always be easy to listen, but it's good to try. And if you feel that you're not the best person to listen to this newcomer, you can always introduce them to someone else. Say, oh, you should meet. Here's someone you should meet, and so forth and so on. This is better done in a group setting, such as a coffee time. at or tea time at your local Dharma center. It's in fact, coffee time is, I used to think it was just like a Christian thing, that, that coffee time was just something that Christian churches did. But I decided pretty early that I wanted coffee time at KTC. And so we planned our schedule around it, that we would have sitting meditation and then coffee time for 30 minutes, and then the class immediately after that, so that coffee time was in the middle, so people could have a sense of meet and greet and decompress from the meditation, and then go into study. So anyway, just listening is a good thing. And asking yourself, how can I be most helpful? This is just a reminder for many of us of our bodhisattva commitment. And sometimes all I can do is just say, may I actually, to make the aspiration in my heart, may I be able to help this person in some way? I don't even know how, but may I be able to be of benefit like that. And then respond to the students' needs as best you can. Some students will have unique needs. Some people will not have needs, but be responsive to what they're requesting. Share your own confidence in the teachings and practice. If they want to know how you experience things, well, be honest with them and talk to them about your experience. Always return the discussion to meditation. I love it that he put it this way, because sometimes people will find a way to steer any conversation back to either their grievances or the people they're mad at or the bad things that are happening to them and so on. And we can't give advice about all that, but we can return the conversation to what we do know something about, which is meditation. And we have to try to do that in as kind and logical a way as possible. And then when in doubt, return to basics. Sometimes what I say to people, and I mentioned this in our last conversation here as a group, I said, sometimes I'll say, well, I don't know the answer to your question, but let's talk around the subject a bit and see if we can learn something, talking about what I do know about the subject, and let's see if that's helpful in some way. And so sometimes I'll do that. Any questions about this section on connection?
Yeah, actually.
Mhm.
So let's see what, I'm someplace. Okay. You mentioned something about sharing, okay, in the share your confidence in the teachings and practice, and sharing some of your own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a question that I kind of was wondering, was like, so let's see, so like, how much of your experiences does it make sense to share? Like the sort of tricks you use to maintain concentration, which may or may not appear in an official book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some metaphors or something you use to, regain focus on constructions, or,
Mm-hmm.
some like, sort of like mental tricks. Like one of the things I do is, if I'm having a thought which I realize is going to be sort of persistent, then I just change the thought to another thought which I think is not going to be persistent, and then I change that to getting back to my breath, because I don't think I'll go from persistent thought to breath in an easy swing. I mean, are these things that we can share?
I would be cautious about it, and because I think that a lot of the effectiveness of these tips and tricks depend upon whether the tips and tricks are truly helpful or not.
Well, this is why I'm asking. Yeah,
they may help you, but they may not help others, and they may also not be. I understand what you're saying, that it's probably best to review all of your tips and tricks with a meditation instructor, and then the meditation instructor will tell you which ones are more likely to be helpful to another student or more likely to be confusing to another student. You see what I'm saying? So yes, it's good to share your experience, but it's also good to sort of check your technique with a meditation teacher and to kind of see, because again, some things that work for you may not work for other people, and it may actually add additional difficulty into their practice that will make them will not help them in the situation. So yeah, it's a very interesting, the whole question of distraction and working with distraction. I could go off on a tangent about that right here, but I'm thinking I'd like to save it if that's okay. And would you mind bringing it back when we hit that point in the meditation instruction review?
Oh, yeah. No, this is, I was just using that as
Yeah.
an example of something where I thought, I could easily go beyond the bounds of
Got it.
helpfulness.
Yeah.
But I wanted
Yeah.
some clarity as to, just how much of
hear that.
myself I should share versus how much
I
I
hear
should
that.
kind of stick to the script.
Well, I tell you what, motivation is everything. And, the idea is like, what's our motivation as we go into a conversation? What are we trying? What's our motivation? What do we want? And what we want, hopefully, is like, how can I be most helpful, right? That's hopefully that's what our motivation is. How can I be most helpful, and how can I benefit this person? And to that end, I do think being able to check out your techniques and tips and tricks and see which ones of them could be shared is a really great idea. That's a great idea, and you should do it. Because that way you'll feel very confident about what you're sharing. Because the reason motivation and technique complement each other. So for example, I'm going to make a joke here. The joke could be, I want to solve this person's problem by any means necessary. And then the answer is like, no, that's not what we want. That's not the motivation. The proper motivation is do what is helpful to them in this situation, not helping them at all costs or by any means. And so I feel like that's why motivation is so important. And then skillful means, right? They talk about in Dharma, they talk about having two skills, wisdom on the one hand and skillful means on the other hand, right? So you have to have both. And I think it does take a little trial and error to figure out which ones, which skillful means are going to be the most useful in any situation. And again, your attitude will help with that. But I really admire where you're going with that. And I really think that's a good idea, to be able to share tips and tricks with people. But they need to be the appropriate ones at the appropriate time. And that's where we got some wiggle room. We got some discussion still open on that, but I love where you're going with it. So let's head down that direction and see where it takes us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah. Other questions or comments or whatever. And since I can't see everyone, feel free to unmute and ask a question. Okay. All right. Oh, now we have a couple of cautions. Don't believe students' projections, and meditation instructors are not counselors. Okay. I frequently, I'm going to deal with the second one first here. Meditation instructors are not counselors. What I tell people is, I say, well, my degree's in journalism. My degree's in journalism. I'm a trained listener, and I've been in therapy for more than 10 years. So, but I'm not trained as a therapist or counselor. So I am not afraid to say to a person, well, you're telling me, friend, you are telling me that you are struggling with depression. And I can't tell you that meditation is a cure for depression. I can't tell you that. But I think that it can help you. And if your therapist has sent you here, because I've actually had people tell me this, my therapist sent me here because I need to learn meditation, and he or she thinks it'll be good for me. But oftentimes people will, as they're telling their stories, they will expect us to answer what they have to say. But often I will say, well, I'm sorry to hear that you're really struggling with this. I myself am not a counselor, but here's what meditation is good for. So again, it's like bringing the conversation back to meditation. Meditation helps us to let go of thoughts and so on. So, and so this can be helpful sometimes, but I also do recommend to people that they see a counselor. I actually do recommend that people, I ask them, do you have someone who listens to you? Do you have someone who supports you emotionally? And if not, I say, well, this would be a good time to work on increasing your support system. But and beyond that, we actually have a therapist at Columbus KTC who has said that if people need a recommendation, they can contact her for a recommendation. She herself may not see clients who come to her through the KTC because of the dual relationship problem. Being a member of the same church and being a therapist can be very difficult. But what she does is she helps them to find therapists. So that's kind of a cool thing. So that's the first. Then the second is don't believe students' projections. Yeah, unfortunately, because my own therapist told me a long time ago, she said, I bet you have more problems than the Christian pastors do of people coming to you saying that they're having visions and that they are extraordinary beings. And the answer to that is, I don't know if it's more, less, or the same that Christian ministers deal with, but I have frequently met people who tell me that they themselves are enlightened and wish to teach at the KTC, that they themselves have visions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and that they themselves are the reincarnations of great masters. I've actually had that happen, and it's very difficult. And what I generally say is what Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche used to say to people. I would pass letters to him from students who have these claims. And he would say, he would answer the letter by saying, I don't know. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if you are this person or this special being or not. I don't know. But I can tell you that you need to practice dharma, regardless of whether you are a reincarnation of a being or not. You still need to practice the dharma, and it really, really will benefit you. So definitely practice dharma. And so that's for the sort of otherworldly projections you'll hear about. But then there are other projections where people say, well, in my, I'm really angry at these people at work. I feel that they're treating me badly, and basically they're looking for affirmation that they're in the right and other people are in the wrong. And that's a more mundane kind of projection that you could unfortunately fall into. So the idea is that we don't need to join the quote unquote army of any individual person, but we should, again, always return the discussion to meditation and always come back to basics. So those are a couple of cautions, because as listeners and as non-judgmental listeners, many people will come to you with stories that may or may not be true and painful situations that may or may not be accurate. And it's hard because they may come to us looking to us for affirmation, and we are not in a position, and it's not healthy for us to give them affirmation. These are among the more difficult things that you'll encounter. We hope it doesn't happen to you frequently, but it could happen. And then you can always take this person to the next person up in your chain of command. So that's something you could do. Questions about this part?
Is there any legal obligation to inform authorities if someone is at the risk of harming others or receiving harm themselves? I speak of this as an old teacher.
Well, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. I will ask our insurance company about that. Okay. because people who train under me and who I supervise are on my liability policy. This is why Columbus KTC has an invitation only. That's why meditation instructor positions in Columbus are invitation only, because they're on my liability insurance, my pastor's liability insurance.
Mhm.
So I would say that I think that I think it's not wrong. I think it's not wrong to get information and take down information if you think people could be in danger of harming themselves or others. Yeah, I don't think it's wrong, but I'll ask my own therapist about this. And because she knows about this stuff, so I'll ask her, okay,
Okay,
if we have
thank
a
you.
duty of care or not. Excellent question. I will get back to you on that. I'm writing it down right now, right over her name in my appointment book. Hang on just a second. They're called mandated reporters.
Mhm.
I will ask that question and see what her opinion is, and then I'll ask our insurance company. By the way, if you need, this is a joke. I'm going to make a little joke here. If you need insurance, call Church Mutual. Anyhow, Church Mutual they are just great sources of information. They will help you with all of this kind of stuff. So if you get your renter's insurance from them, for example, if you rent a space for your Dharma center and you get your renter's insurance from Church Mutual, they have a ton of resources available online to answer questions, and their agents will answer questions, and it's really good stuff because they specialize in this. There are two companies that I know of. There may be more, but there are two large companies. One is called Brotherhood Mutual, and the other one is called Church Mutual. And they're different companies, but they serve the same clientele. Okay, thanks for that. Other questions?
Yes, Lama Kathy.
Sure.
So I'm curious about the line between venting and just expressing oneself and listening to that, and then when that moves into something that we should be more cautious of. For example, exasperation with the pandemic or something, and
Oh,
just
sure.
we draw the line. And then also, I'm always kind of leery about lines of political talk too, like political discussions.
Yeah.
And how do we would bring that back to meditation, but how much, like, just kind of airing our tiredness.
Yeah. I think everybody is going to have a different level with that. Some people will have a lot of patience with that. Other people will not have a lot of patience with that. You know what I mean? And that you kind of need to go to your own tolerance, and if something starts to make you feel like it's getting to be excessive, or you feel unsafe in the situation, I would say that it's okay to back off and to say, oh, I don't think we're going to solve this. I don't think we're going to solve it in this conversation that we're having today. But I do want you to know that meditation helps us with everything. Or you can say, boy, I can really understand why a person, why everybody's tired, everybody's worn out, everybody's fed up. And so that maybe that's why we're all here, to learn meditation. And, and so I would try to think your way around that. And maybe other people have other ways they'd like to handle that. Do you guys have anything you'd like to add to this? Because I'm open for a conversation on that. Anybody has tips and tricks?
Well, maybe a little comment would be, I think it would be a mistake to assume people's political affiliations at all.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's any one political affiliation drawn to the Dharma.
Right.
I think it can be easy to think that could be true, but I don't believe that to be true.
No, it's not.
And a person could really be, I think a person could really feel put off if they felt there was an expectation for them to hold certain views. And I personally
you for
wouldn't
that.
want to, I would want to remove, I feel like that would be like a no-go zone for me. Because I would never want, it's too touchy, and it wouldn't,
Yeah.
you know, that's just my thought.
And you know what? It's okay to say that to people. It's okay to say that to people like, oh man, we could talk for hours if we got started on this. But I feel that for us right now today, the most important thing to talk about is dharma and meditation. I think that that's fine because you're being clear that, you know, oh wow, we could just go into this. We could really go deep on this, but that's not why we're here today. Does that make sense to you, Catherine? Does that work?
Yeah, yes, it does very much. Yes.
And I'm so glad you brought this up because this actually has come up in Columbus before. And we did have a volunteer resign because they felt they were being expected to hold a specific political viewpoint. And you know, I get it. I get it because the person anyhow held an extremely unusual viewpoint, let's put it that way. And they met somebody who expected them to have another viewpoint, and they quit being a volunteer for that reason because they felt that that there was no room for them in our congregation, and I get that. But these days it's really fraught, you know, and I've read some really good commentary in various news outlets lately about how we have to do our best to just connect to people as humans, and to try to let that be the basis of our relationships rather than getting into politics, because there are actors on both the left and the right who want everybody to hold extreme positions and expect people to hold fast to extreme positions. And I don't think that's fair. It's not fair to anybody. So anyway, thank you. Catherine, did that help?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have any other things you'd like to say about it?
Only that I find a refuge in Buddhism from that personally, in meditation.
Yeah, I hear that.
And so I would hate, I think in some ways for me, it's the antidote to this conundrum we have. And personally, that's one thing that compels me to feel like this is urgently important to offer it. So
Yeah.
were I to be in a situation where things descended into that, I would feel like it was an antithesis of what I would have hoped for the situation.
You would not be alone in that thought. I've had several people say this to me from, you know, so yeah, so I get it.
So
I
Lama
do.
Kathy,
Yes.
this is Patricia.
Yeah.
So I think that what has happened is that the pandemic has caused a lot of divisiveness.
Yeah.
And when we would start teaching face to face with people, is vaccination a political issue?
I'm pretty sure it will be. I'm pretty sure it will be because just as KTD, the National Monastery, has formed its policy, then there was a really powerful pushback from one individual who was a 3-year retreat graduate who has doubts about the pandemic, and they felt that it was erroneous to ask for vaccination. We have not talked about that yet. We have not had our meeting about it yet. We will be having a meeting about it this week to discuss our policies. And what we may end up doing is because KTD has chosen to ask for proof of vaccination for people who wish to go into the shrine building.
Mm-hmm.
And and that everyone inside the shrine building wear a mask.
Mhm.
So that's what KTD did. And so we might do it. We might do something different. I don't know what we will do. We've got an epidemiologist and 2 physicians on the reopening committee, and I'm not sure what their thoughts are going to be. It could be that they will say mask requirement is the best. But yes, these are divisive issues because they have become political. And I don't know that there's any immediate way that we can solve this except through prayer, because I feel that what's going on right now is it's got to be some kind of like really awful ripening karma by humanity to distrust one another and to hate on one another, and it's really making me sad. It's making me sad. I wish it wasn't happening, but here it is, you know. If those of you who remember Dr. Amy Acton, who was the head of the Ohio Department of Health at the beginning of the pandemic, but was hounded out of office by
Right.
armed men on her front lawn, acting in a threatening manner toward her. She was interviewed by the Columbus Dispatch after her departure from that position, and she said, I have the unfortunate experience of having studied the genocide in Rwanda. And she said it wasn't, it was actually worked on over weeks, months, and years, that the 2 sides began to increasingly attack one another with hateful rhetoric. That the 2 sides over days, weeks, months, and years increased their hatred for one another purposefully through radio and television. And then she said warfare broke out. It wasn't that one day one neighbor looked at the other and started beating them up. You know, it wasn't like that. It wasn't just one day everybody woke up and started killing each other. It was worked on by people who were manipulating people in order to get them to hate one another. And because it was to somebody else's benefit for there to be civil war. And so, yeah, her warning is that we have to make connection with individuals, every individual we know, and try to make loving and kind connections with the people we know, and to try to express this loving kindness and to increase kindness in community settings. And that's the only thing. So we're going to like do an active listening workshop as soon as we open up for business and stuff like that, to try to help people get skills. And in fact, we do actually want to have we actually want to go public and have we're going to call it the red and blue conversation, where we're not actually going to have a political conversation. We're going to invite people from sides of the political divide to actually sit together and meditate together on a weekly basis for several weeks, and then have a conversation.
Great idea.
I mean, we're just going to try different things. It could be a complete failure, but anyway, so I'm sorry I kind of went off topic there.
Could I ask a little
Yes,
bit?
yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, I noticed that you had a question. I'm sorry I didn't recognize it.
It's along the same lines. I was going to ask that, plus about the environment and global warming. I noticed that the Dalai Lama had posted on the internet him with praying hands and saying that this is our only home, and trying to get people to protect the environment. I think the scientific study should, most of the ones are saying it should really be beyond any kind of dispute on that.
Sure.
And also, I think in Karmapa's book, Interconnected, he talks about the same sort of thing. So I don't know. I mean, so many things like that seem like pandemic seems that way to me too. That these things are really scientific. What I heard recently, the famous astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's teaching this class online. Master class on scientific thinking and effective communication, but he said there's three kinds of truth. There's personal truth, religious truth, and objective truth. And, you know, of course, scientists are after objective truth, that they give their experimentation and leave it open for other people to try the same thing. And anyway, I'm going on too long, but I don't know. So somehow some of this seems like it gets some people want to categorize that as, oh, that's my political opinion. You know, you can't tell me it's wrong when it seems like it's really a scientific objective truth.
And, you know, I really do appreciate what you have to say about this, and I appreciate your observation about it. I do, because I feel that this is what your experience of this is the experience of lots of other people. And so I think you're describing what we've all gone through over the last year or so. And some of it's been a little bit of suffering for us to go through different people naming truth in a different way. So I appreciate what you had to say about Neil deGrasse Tyson and his 3 kinds of truth. I think that's really important. And I think one of the other things we can do at this point is I do recommend that if you have the opportunity, there are, I don't have them ready at my fingertips, but there have been a number of really good articles written in various news outlets and magazines about how to talk to people who are on the other side of your political divide, of the political divide that you're in, how to listen to them and how to talk to them. And I think, and also the more we can learn about conspiracy theories, and the more we can learn about who benefits from espousing conspiracy theories and what benefits people derive from that, I think the more we can learn about that, the more we can kind of stand in the place of the other person's pain, because I think that's really what we're doing here. When we listen to a person who is an extremist of any kind, we have to kind of stand for a moment and be in the place of their pain, because obviously they are not espousing this extreme position because they're happy. They're espousing this extreme position because they're in pain. And if we can find a way to go to the place where they're hurting, even if we can't, even if we will never agree with them, at least we'll have compassion for them. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Well, because of time, I'll have to stop here. But if you have other things that you'd like to add to this conversation, you can let me know by email, and we'll make sure we cover it next time we get together. Meanwhile, the last part of this handout talks about common challenges that students will have. One is time. They won't have enough time to practice. Understanding what to do, meaning that they won't know what to do if they get lost in their practice of meditation, if they forget the instructions. If they forget the instructions, that's another challenge for them. And so being able to refamiliarize themselves with instructions are important. And then confidence. They may lack confidence in the dharma, and they may lack confidence in themselves, or they may lack confidence in both the dharma and themselves. So these might be in differing categories, but so these are common challenges. When time is an issue, encourage students to do short meditations frequently, or I'm sorry, not frequently, with regularity. Because it's the cumulative effect of meditation that is important from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's point of view. He says it's the consistency, being consistent with practicing a small amount every day is more effective than practicing a large amount occasionally. Does this make sense? It's kind of like the example that I give is physical exercise. If a person does a little bit of walking every day, it's better than trying to walk 2 miles on one day. They get more benefit if they actually do their exercise a little bit a day rather than a lot once in a while. And so I would encourage students to start with an easy period of time, like 10 minutes of meditation, and make sure that they understand what to do and understand the parts of the meditation practice. What are the parts and how do they work and so on. And then you can help them with their confidence by telling them what they've got right, and also letting them know what they can change. So in this way, these common challenges, we can help accompany students as they face these common challenges. And if they continue to have problems after we've worked with them, we can again hand them up the chain to one of the lamas or one of the meditation mentors in Columbus, because we have 4 meditation mentors in Columbus they have a second level of training. I did this as an experiment and nobody told me to stop. So, so we started this experiment many years ago, probably around 2006, 2007. And it's gone very well. We gave a set of meditation instructors extra training in how to help people with these 2 things, understanding what to do and confidence. And it worked, and people felt cared for, and it helped them to stay with meditation, which was the object. Any questions or thoughts about these? Okay, then I'd like to share. Whoop, I made that thing disappear, and I shouldn't have. Because I need to send a copy of it to you. This was guidelines for instructors. Okay, I'm sending this right now to everybody. So, yay. I just realized I have to do that in a certain way to make it work. Well, I thought that was going to be easy. All right, here we go. Yep, now I found it. So I'm going to go ahead and send to all of you this handout, so I don't forget to do it. Okey-doke, there it goes. All right. So at this point, let's see here. I'm going to introduce the objectives for meditation instruction. And then we'll wrap up for today, and then pick up on the 9th with the meditation instruction itself. Thank you for letting me offer all of this, all of this information. Whoop. Nope, that's not the one. Okay, let's see if I can get the right one. Here we go. All right, let's do that. I made a mistake trying to share the proper screen. Here we go. Now we got it. All right. This comes from Columbus KTC's materials for meditation instructors. The overall objective of our meditation instruction is to orient students to tranquility meditation at KTC and give instruction and experience in practicing tranquility meditation as taught by our teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. So that's our overall objective, is to orient students to meditation and give instruction, and then sit with them and have short experiences of meditation with them. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about meditation first, give the instruction second, And then third, we're going to sit with them. So that's what is going to happen in any given class. The detailed objectives are to briefly introduce KTC and the Buddhist view underlying meditation practice. And we'll give you more on this later, but I just wanted to give you the objectives list first so you would know. And again, if you don't have this document, I will email it to you at the conclusion of class. So what I generally do is I generally introduce the Columbus KTC by telling people what our name means. Karma is our family name. We are of the family of the Karma Kagyu tradition. Teg Sum means 3 vehicles, that we actually teach practices from all 3 of the turnings of the wheel of Dharma. And then we teach quiet sitting meditation from the Hinayana. We teach compassion meditation from the Mahayana. And we teach mantra meditation and Mahamudra meditation from the Vajrayana. So if people want to know who we are and what we do, we teach basic sitting, compassion meditation, mantra meditation, and Mahamudra meditation, generally in that order. And that explains what we teach. And Chu Ling means Dharma place. So we're a place of the Buddhist teaching, of the 3 vehicles, of the Karma Kagyu tradition, and that I usually end by making the joke, now you see why KTC is so much easier. It's a much easier way to talk about it. And then the Buddhist view underlying meditation practice we'll get into next time. So this is the first introduction to these objectives. We'll start here next time. We present instructions on the physical posture and the mental technique of tranquility meditation. After doing that, we practice tranquility meditation a few minutes together. Then we discuss the correct practice of tranquility in further detail. We review the benefits of tranquility meditation, explain how to practice at home and at KTC. And then because KTC Columbus does walking meditation, we present a brief walking meditation instruction that was given by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. So we use his instruction to teach walking meditation. And those of you who have been to Karma Triana Dharma Chakra in the last 5 or 6 years have received walking meditation instruction from Khenpo Tenkyong, and his instruction is different than Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's instruction, and it's okay, it's just different. And then we invite questions and discussions. And then usually in this we have keywords that we're trying to define, which is Karma Teksum Cholang. And then our home meditation center is called Karma Triana Dharma Chakra. Guess what? Same meaning. Dharma Chakra means place of the Buddhist teaching. Triana means the 3 yanas, and karma refers to the Karma Kagyu lineage. Karma Triana Dharma Chakra is the name in Sanskrit. It's the name in Sanskrit. Karma Teksum Cholang is the same name in Tibetan. Cool, right? Also, Shine and Shamatha mean the same thing, tranquility meditation. Shamatha, which is sometimes spelled with an H. Shamatha or Shamatha is the Sanskrit word. Shamatha is the Sanskrit word. Shine is the Tibetan word. And they both mean calm abiding. Shi means peace, ne means abide. I don't know how Shamatha breaks down, so I can't tell you that one. Okay, so this is all we're going to be able to do today, but we did at least get started on the meditation instruction part. And I will make sure that I send this to all of you when we're done here today. Because of time, and I want to be respectful for your time, we're going to need to wrap up. But do you have any questions or thoughts here at the conclusion?
I had a quick question.
Sure.
In a discussion when we were meeting in person at one of our teachings, and it's not really what we're teaching, but on the mantras, on the Vajrayana, Chinmezi can be done without an empowerment. Is that right?
It depends. It depends. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche himself said that it is best to do a mantra that you at least have received the reading transmission for. And that comes from a lama or from a person who has been authorized to give it. However, he has said on numerous occasions that the two mantras that anybody can do, even without an empowerment, even without a reading transmission, there are two mantras everybody can do. One is Chenrezi. And the other one is Medicine Buddha. But what I tell people is, since the Chenrezi sadhana as it's done at KTC contains 3 different mantras, it's perfectly fine to recite them in a group. It's perfectly fine to recite them in a group. And if you feel like reciting them at home, any of those 3 mantras, which are Chenrezi, Amitabha, and Guru Rinpoche, it's fine, but make the aspiration to get the reading transmission as soon as you can.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Well, you guys are amazing. You paid attention and stayed awake the whole time. Wow.
Thank you, Lama
Thank
Kathy.
you.
You're amazing.
Yay.
Lama.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
no, I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. And if you have other questions, I've sent you 2 emails just now, one with the objectives list, which you may actually have received before, but just to be on the safe side, I sent it to you again. And then the guidelines document we went over at the first part. And then the next time, what we're going to be going over is a document that is called Guidelines for Meditation by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. Just briefly, I'm going to go ahead and share it with you so you see what it looks like. This is what we'll be looking at next time. Guidelines for meditation. If you have not received this, I'll go ahead and send it to you now. And it's a multi-page document explaining meditation and how to do it. It's just these 3 banks of type, this one, and this one. And it's really complete, really easy. And when I recommend to people that they teach meditation, I recommend they use this because it's really, really easy to teach directly from this document. So
Yeah, Lama Kathy, we received that.
you did very good.
Yeah, that was
Excellent.
in your, yeah.
Okay, good. Anybody want it again, or you got it? Everybody good? Okay, everybody's good. We like that. Good is good. All right. Well, then let's stop here for today and pull together the merit and dedicate the merit of our session today. We dedicate the merit of today's session to all sentient beings, making the aspiration that all beings are free from suffering, come to Buddhahood, happiness, and then to Buddhahood, and coming to Buddhahood, may they emanate in all directions and benefit sentient beings. I'll recite the short prayer in English. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great afternoon.
See you soon.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Okay, bye, everyone. Om Mani Padme Hum.
Bye.